of talked about how he's been open. Like, I want to embrace the challenge of transitioning to a new country, to a new community, and he's certainly not hesitating to do so, which is all good. But I do want to talk about the baseball team now, right? Because all right, Tetsuya Mai, he's going to be good, he's going to be bad. We're going to see. There's a lot of other things that are going to impact whether the Astros are good and bad this season, and I think that we do have the big one that I just want to hit. But before I let you go here, is just this glut of infielders, or infielders is really not the word to use, but hitters,
DHs,
right? Hitters, DHs, right? DHs. Now, some of them are DH by definition of like they suck at defense. Some of them are DH by like, well, where else are they going to hit? Where else are they going to play? And so let's talk about these players, right? We're really talking about four guys for essentially two spots, arguably, which is Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve, who are essentially the faces of the franchise, right? Those are the guys that have defined in a lot of ways this era of Astros baseball over the last, half decade. Christian Walker, who entering year 2 of a free agent deal that hilariously right after they signed an identical one with Jose Abreu was looking eerily similar. Not that bad, but concerning. And then Isaac Paredes, who they acquired for Kyle Tucker, and when was on the field was very good, but then also had a lot of injuries. And the timing of that injuries coinciding with Carlos Correa's inexplicable return has resulted in Isaac Paredes not having a position to play, essentially, even though he is still, by all accounts, quite a good hitter. Altuve and Yordan Alvarez are relevant because the way that the manager, Joe Espada, has spoken about them, he does not seem to really want either of them to be playing a whole lot of defense. Certainly Alvarez. Altuve, I would love some more clarification from you. So as we sit here now in early January, this is not a functional roster group. I think that is fair to say. So you don't necessarily have to predict what's going to happen, but how did we get here? And what is maybe the most likely path forward for this group?
Well, we got here because Isaac Paredes basically tore his hamstring off the bone while running down the line in Seattle last July. Sustained a severe hamstring strain that at the time the Astros thought was going to keep him out for the whole season. So they needed a third baseman. Like, they went into the trade deadline last year. They were fighting with the Mariners for supremacy in the AL West. They had a playoff spot at that point secured. They needed a third baseman. The Minnesota Twins were doing what they do. And, it was a Jim Crane special at the trade deadline because as he talked about yesterday, when he talked about the luxury tax yesterday, just basically said, get me to the deadline. And then, like, you've seen what we do at the deadline. Right.
I'll do something.
And here we are. So they needed a third baseman. They went and got Carlos Correa to play third base. And at the time, there were people, me, questioning, like, all right, like, I get the fit in 2025. Like, it's obvious. Like, the 2025 Astros needed a third baseman. The Astros went and got the best third baseman out there available at that point to play.
Who they happen to have a intimate knowledge of.
Correct. But everyone could see from a mile away that, like, this isn't going to work in 2026 because Isaac Paredes was going to be healthy and going to be ready to contribute in 2026. They have Jeremy Pena at shortstop. And, Carlos Correa, from the minute he started playing third base for the Astros, said, I love it. It keeps me healthier. It keeps me fresher. I feel better. Like, I'm never moving back to shortstop. So that's never happening. You've got, and so that's how we got to the logjam, right? We got reacquiring Correa is the thing that has put them into this position.
Well, so and we should just say, and the large contract that Correa is still on that seemingly entrenches him at third base next to Pena for the foreseeable future.
Sure, but even if it was a less cumbersome contract, like, I don't think it's one of those things where they would, like, dump Correa because, like, he means too much to the city. He means too like they got him back, and it was like he's retiring here. Like, he's never.
Yes. No, I for sure. I get it. But it's like, okay, well, there's your left side of the infield. So now what?
So as the offseason began, that became the primary question is like, how do you fit these 5 dudes into 4 spots? And so at the winter meetings, we got some clarity. You know, Joe Espada, you kind of alluded to it. Joe Espada said he wanted Yordan Alvarez. He made no uncertain terms. Yordan Alvarez is going to be the primary DH. He's going to spend most of his time at designated hitter. I think their foremost goal is the foremost goal in all of this and everything we're about to talk about is they've got to keep Yordan Alvarez on the field. He played 48 games last year.
Right.
If he plays 58 games last year, they probably make the playoffs. And then who knows what happens after that. But they've got to keep him on the field. What's interesting is that none of his injuries recently have come from playing defense. Like he had a chronic hand thing. And then when he had the freak ankle injury at the end of the season, that was him like stepping on home plate awkwardly while scoring from second base. Like none of his injuries in the past 2 or 3 years have had to do anything with defense, but still they want to keep him. They want to like avoid that thought at any point. So
Sure.
They want him to DH. I think as is well known now, Jose Altuve made the move to left field for parts of last season. Injuries forced him to play more second base than I think they wanted to before the season. But at the winter meetings, Joe Espada strongly hinted, without just outright saying it, that they would like second base to be Altuve's primary position in 26. That's not to say he won't play some left field. That's not to say Yordan Alvarez won't play some left field. But they would like, I think their most ideal configuration is Alvarez DHing and Altuve at second base, which makes it impossible for both Isaac Paredes and Christian Walker to get any semblance of everyday at bats. The only way this was going to work was if the DH spot was truly open and truly free to maneuver guys around. You could DH Walker one day, let Paredes play first, Altuve at second, Yordan in left, and you're like, but everything we have heard to this point suggests that that's not going to be the case, that they will not have the DH to free up. There is no one in baseball that thinks Isaac Paredes can handle second base at any sort of an everyday level. That's not to say Jose Altuve does a great job of it either, but at least there is like the track record of he can play the position. There's a lot of people that don't think Isaac Paredes can do that. So now they're left with, well, what do you do? Isaac Paredes is more valuable to the 2026 Astros than Christian Walker. Like he, at times last year, was their best hitter. He is the only guy in the lineup that sees pitches. He's the only guy in the lineup that can like has an on-base percentage to the point where he works walks. To like Yordan works walks because pitchers are afraid of him. Like Paredes works walks because he's just really, really disciplined. He's got great plate discipline and approach. The problem is, I don't know that you're trading Christian Walker. I don't know that you're going to convince a team to take on Christian Walker with $40 million and 2 years left on it. The Astros are going to have to pay some of that down if they trade him. Christian Walker has a limited no trade clause. He can block trades to 6 teams. Not sure what those teams are. But it leaves them in a fascinating little crossroads. You know, Dana Brown the whole offseason has expressed, oh, like we're fine with it. We're fine with this surplus. We got to get guys off their feet anyway. But I mean, as I keep saying, like anyone that will listen, like if you have been in a major league clubhouse for at any length of time, like you go try telling Isaac Paredes in his 3rd year of ARB that, hey, you're only going to get 400 at bats this year.
Or you go try to, it's just
right.
like, it's not, yeah. So,
and that too, like all these fans, like I got into a reply fest with some of them the other day. But
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading those.
all these fans have like, every time I bring up that like, hey, like they're probably gonna have to trade Isaac Paredes. And they're like, oh, you can, he's untouchable. And I asked, okay, well, how's he gonna play? And they give me all these permutations like, oh, he can play this many games here. And it's like, guys, like in no way anything you're giving me suggests he's going to be an everyday player. So how can you say he is that important to the Astros when he is? Don't get me wrong, very important. How can you say that when you're also going to bring him back in a non-regular role? That makes no sense. So it's my like strong opinion and my kind of just informed thought that the Astros are going to have to make a call. They're going to have to, like, within the next 3 or 4 weeks before they get to camp, one of Isaac Paredes or Christian Walker is probably going to have to go for no other reason than they need more practical roster construction. They need to be able to get these guys every day at bats. And also, like, Yordan Alvarez is making almost $30 million this year. Jose Altuve is making $30 million this year. Isaac Paredes is going to make 10 and ARB, and Christian Walker is going to make 20. That's a lot of money tied into, and even when you distill it down to Paredes and Walker, like that's almost $30 million tied up in two guys that you right now can't guarantee every day at bats. That's not practical financial allocation of resources either. So they've got to figure this out. I don't envy Dana Brown because it's going to be difficult. But if we're talking like purely like what would they get the most value back on, like what would be the better trade for them, it's Isaac Paredes. But as we've talked about with Tatsuya Imai, they are a win now 2026 team, and trading Isaac Paredes makes that more difficult in 2026.
It makes it more difficult, but it is also not hard to see, and we can wrap here, but there are a lot of questions in the outfield too. I mean, my goodness, do you like not really know what you have going on in the outfield? And so you would say, well, what would you trade Isaac Paredes for? Well, you could trade him for more pitching because while you have pointed out, yes, maybe they do have too many starters now, although does that really exist?
Nope.
There's also some huge questions still in the outfield with how bad Jesus Sanchez was, with what Cam Smith was as a rookie in the second half. With, again, if Yordan's not going to play the outfield and Altuve is not going to play the outfield, well, then who's in left field, right? Is Jake Myers getting traded? There's so many things that can still happen with this Astros offseason. And as with every Astros move, what makes them so interesting is, Jim Crane's clearly pushing a lot of buttons. And so with respect to Dana Brown and his credentials and whatever moves he has or has not been directly involved in making, we will see how Crane plus Brown plus Espada choose to maneuver this roster moving forward.